Summer is finally here and the Tour de France is on the way. In the Gruppetto this week, Matt Stevens, Hannah Walker, helicopters, racing, just about everything you want for this week as we build up to the Tour de France. First, let's have a look at how that build-up started. So the countdown to the Tour de France is on and the Dauphiné is underway.
The race has been a summer fixture since the late 1940s, but stage one saw its first ever visit to the Allier department, an area much more synonymous with Paris-Nice. The weather seemed confused and turned up if it were actually Paris-Nice. Perhaps a good omen for Matteo Jorgensen, the winner of this year's March Madness. Here he would share leadership with fellow American Sepp Kuss, while Jonas Vingegaard was off at altitude training for Visma Lease bike and on the road to recovery following that shocking Basque Country crash in March. Fellow victims of that accident, Remco Evenepoel and former Dauphiné winner Primož Roglič, were back in the saddle here. Expectations for immediate performances unknown and part of the intrigue going into this 8-day test. The opening stage, on paper at least, was due to be one for the sprinters, and with 5 uphill finishes, plus a time trial to come this week, the few fast men who turned up would have been glad of this chance. Because after an early break consisting of Mark Donovan and Mathis Lebert was caught, and a couple of late attacks were thwarted, the Sam Bennett versus Mads Pedersen show could begin. The Lidl Trekmans team piloted him into a perfect position, and once the Dane hit the front, his Irish rival couldn't get around him. Pedersen taking his 8th victory of the season and returning straight back to winning ways following a post-cobbled classics break. Earlier in the week, but also in France, the Mercantour Classic was in just its 4th edition. It's a mountainous race, a one-day affair with over 5,000 metres of climbing. Including ascents of both the Col de la Quillole and La Colmiane, this season's spectacle offered a preview of part of the route of what will be the final road stage in next month's Tour de France. All eyes were on it then. The start list didn't include too many expected Tour performers, but it did give the watching public yet another flash of a future Tour star's brilliance. 20-year-old Lenny Martinez, a native of southern France, won for the 5th time this season. Rumoured as a Grand Tour leader in a rival World Tour team for the next few seasons, the grandson of a stage winner at the Tour de France won alone for Groupama FDJ. With transfer season looming, they'll be desperate not to lose him, but the talk behind the scenes is of a possible done deal. Aggressive racing and attacking on the Mur in Geraardsbergen is always a way to win over the Belgian cycling public. Not that Biniam Girmay needed to do that. Already a fan favourite before taking on the Brussels Cycling Classic in such style, he turned the race that used to be known as Paris-Bruxelles into a more open affair. Regrouping on the way back to Brussels, a late attack from 2 riders, including Uno X Mobility's Jonas Abrahamsen, put the remaining contenders under pressure. The 28-year-old Norwegian is a pro cycling late bloomer, but following a rethink a couple of seasons ago, now a strong man who's been knocking on the door. A solid Tour de France 12 months ago attracted attention. A heartbreaking end to a 200-kilometre breakaway at Tirreno Adriatico brought him close to a first ever win in March. And later that month, a 2nd place at Dwars door Vlaanderen confirmed his strength. So it was only right that he should finally be able to celebrate, holding off the advancing fast men to take his maiden success. A lovely moment in the Belgian capital. Biniam Girmay finished 2nd. He now returns to Eritrea to prepare for the Tour. And coming off the Giro, Caden Groves was 3rd.
Now it's emerged that a stint in Sierra Nevada was the first time that Abrahamsen had ever been to an altitude training camp. I have a good feeling he might be going back. Well, no altitude camps for this next man. He's far too busy for that. He's going to be with me all week on the Dauphiné coverage, and I caught up after stage 1 with Matt Stevens. Well, I'm with Matt Stevens this week. The Dauphiné is underway. Back in the home studio, he's at home as well. It's a big one, Matt. Start of July, not too far away now. Of course, the Tour actually this year starts a couple of days before the end of June because of the Olympics. Matt, it's lovely to be back with you. How have you been, mate?
I've been good, thank you. Like you, it's nice to do the Dauphiné. I've not done it for a couple of years, but coming straight off the back of the Giro D'Italia is, it's nice to get back into the rhythm again because I woke up on Monday thinking I had another stage, and it's funny once you get into the routine of Grand Tour life, you do miss it, don't you? Actually jump back in with the Dauphiné ahead of the Tour, which we're both going to be working on, is great. So we got a real nice insight into some of the riders to definitely watch out for, especially given that the interesting year we've had in terms of new riders becoming a bit more prominent, established riders being injured. So it's in a real state of flux. So I think the Dauphiné is going to be a proper litmus test, and of who's got the form and who has still got a little bit more work to do ahead of the Tour. Because we know that, does anybody really want to be on it for the Dauphiné, or do they just want to be just before they're on it? It's a funny one, isn't it? But no, I love the Dauphiné, and this year's course. Wow, it's brutal, isn't it? Absolutely brutal.
I was just about to ask you, why should people watching this watch the Dauphiné? I mean, 5 uphill finishes. There's a time trial as well. Rog and Remco are back. First time since that day in the Agilia, the Tour of the Basque Country. Jorgensen, Kuss, Gegenhardt, Ciccone. I'm sure I've missed plenty of names off there as well. There's Rodriguez and Ayuso. It's quite the lineup for the general classification. I think it's what they'd say is stacked, isn't it, Matt?
It's proper stacked. Yeah, it's a real stacked feel. As you said, I think you did actually manage to list pretty much everybody there. So well done, Rob. Especially straight off the top of your head. You're clearly in good commentary form, which is good, but make sure you don't peak too early. But no, I think people should watch is because we have got some of the pre-race favourites aren't in the form that you'd normally expect this year, at this time of year, should I say, especially Primoz, especially Remco Pol. But that they are going to look at this race as an opportunity to build their condition. So what we've got is various top-end rock on different trajectories, and I think that could give us some really interesting racing on a parcours that increasingly gets harder and harder. I mean, we've already had our first sprint stage, the Dauphiné, great win by Pedersen, but we're into stage 2, and already we're at 1,200 meters elevation and a hilltop finish, and it's not even a mountain finish. It's kind of a semi-mountainous stage. We've got a real hard T as well midweek, a long one, 34 kilometers. And then we've got a mix of high mountains and medium mountains, which suit different sorts of riders. And right now, I can't see anybody who's going to walk away with this race. And that's what's interesting. We've seen riders in the recent years, you almost know, unless they crash, they're going to win. You know, there's always one or two. But I think this particular edition of the Dauphiné is wider. And I think that's why people should tune in. You got a wide open race with the creme de la racing, with a view to building form. But who doesn't want to add the Dauphiné as well? It's such a prestigious race in its own right. And for the like Kuss and Jorgensen, for example, it's another opportunity in the absence of Jonas to win big, regardless of the Tour. It's just I could win the Dauphiné. So there's that to contend with as well. So I think we've got a beautifully designed course, which in microcosm is very similar to the way that the Tour de France is, that brutal, hard final week. And the last 3 stages of the Dauphiné are hard mountain stages, full of riders looking to seize opportunity. And it's really important for the likes of Remco and Primoz Roglic to build that shape ahead of the Tour. And who knows? I just think we're going to, this is maybe one of the most unprecedented Dauphinés of recent years, which makes it even more tantalising for our viewers.
The Giro d'Italia general classification was quite predictable. I mean, it was a fantastic race apart from that. You were on the ground and I know you really enjoyed, as you always do, your time in Italy. Looking forward, of course, Pogačar has now gone to altitude to prepare for the Tour de France. We won't see him race again until the Tour, but if it was all about Pogačar in Italy, it's certainly not going to be all about Pogačar by the time we get to Italy again, because let's remember this year, the Tour de France starts in Italy. There's stronger other ingredients to add into the recipe, isn't there, for the Tour?
Yeah, I think, I mean, UAE are still saying that Jonas is the big favourite. Heat away from Tadej, aren't they? We know he's got the first objective of a potentially historic Giro Tour double. I think is, although he wasn't properly tested, I don't think in the Giro, and that's no disrespect to any of the other riders. I think they'd agree he just wasn't really truly tested. So if anything, I think he might have won the Giro slightly undercooked. So I think he's going to be fresh. I don't think he'll make the same mistake twice. The fact he's not even racing his national tour or the national championships says a lot about just keeping him simmering. But the tour is always complicated, and it's although it's got the hard final week, I was just before we came on and did this, I was just looking at the opening week, or the opening 3 or 4 days. Italy, it's very challenging. We could, will we see him lead from finish? That's quite an interesting one. Will we see a rider lead from start to finish? That remains to be seen. But right now, I think Tadej Pogačar is the overwhelming favourite. But the Dauphiné would be massively instructive. I think we might see 1 or 2 surprises come through. Will we see Ayuso become a real legitimate challenger? But again, he can't, because obviously it's all about one rider. But for me,
or can he? Or can he, Matt? That's the talk. You never know.
You never know. But also, if you're going to go into a tour, let's say something happens to Pogačar, you're going to want to try and do something in the tour, and they've got so much strength in depth, they can maybe try something different. But I think the one team that's going to have to try something different, let's say Jonas, and I think we all as fans, observers, hope he does.
Yeah.
All he's going to do, in my opinion, is get stronger and stronger and stronger. I don't think we'll see the best Jonas heading into the race. That's of course if he rides, and we are presuming a lot here, so forgive me, but for a little bit of artistic license. But of Sepkus, with the likes of Matteo Jorgensen, they've got a couple of very, very exciting riders, and they can ride disruptively. We talk. Maybe we overuse the word disruptive riding, but that's what we're seeing increase in the modern peloton. You have to ride disruptively in order to affect change, because going head to head with the big riders in the World Tour is really hard. So you have to think differently, go a lot earlier there. But as Jorgensen in particular really likes that sort of bike riding, doesn't he? He's on the very vanguard of what's true. I think is about him moving to the Dutch team was the fact they think differently, they train differently, very different than the traditional Movistar squad, of course. But he's exciting riders out there, or I think relishes the opportunity to potentially step up. But a discovery for him. And then I don't know. Let's just see what Roglic can do. And then of course Remco, playing his cards very close to his chest, will always remain a danger. But I think the high mountains might see his undoing. But we shall see. I could be completely wrong. But we're set for an exciting tour. But I think the Italian element of it, starting in Florence, is going to be beautiful, isn't it? To go back to Italy. But the final week is brutal. We've got the gravel as well. But I think the few days in Italy could be really quite unpredictable. Could see some fantastic racing.
Well, you mentioned Jonas Vingegaard. Just to update the viewers, he's in Tignes at the moment in the French Alps. He's doing his altitude training after getting back on the bike over the last few months. So it's a very much wait and see for him. We don't yet know what Wout van Aert's plans are as well in terms of riding the Tour de France and not. We know that Van der Poel will be there, and there's a whole host of names we haven't even mentioned yet. I would go as far as to say that this is the most exciting Tour route and the most exciting Tour lineup for quite a number of years. And that goes for our reporters on the ground, because you're going to be there as well, Matt.
I am indeed. Going back for another 3 weeks. I love it. I'm really, really excited, mate. And I'm going to be, I think I'm allowed today, aren't I? I'm hopping on the moto as well for the second week, which is a voyage of discovery for Matteo Jorgensen. Another Matt's going to be on a voyage of discovery. That's me on the motorbike. So I'm a little bit apprehensive in a good way, but I can of course pick the brains of Adam Blythe and the rest, and Yinzi. But no, it's going to be tremendous. But I think Italy is going to be a wonderful Grand Depart down in Florence. A city of real culture, and also some of the most beautiful roads down that neck of the woods. So I think you're quite right, Rob. It's a really creative, inventive route with opportunities, just a wonderful spectacle. And I think, although Tadej Pogačar is dominant, there's a lot of other riders that are going to want to impress, and also I think there's a lot of riders who are willing to take risks as well. I think the only way to beat dominant riders these days is to actually not settle for second best and take risks. And I think a generation of riders now who are willing to do that, and that's going to make it so entertaining. I mean, we've been royally, haven't we, over the last couple of years with this modern style of race. Expect more Tour. But yeah, mate, I cannot wait to get on the ground. Yeah.
Well, we'll let you get off. I mean, I'll be seeing you all week. The viewers can catch us every single day this week on the Dauphiné. Check your schedules wherever you're watching across Europe. It is live and on demand on Eurosport and on Discovery Plus. And I think I can spy Matt just opening the browser there. I think he's going on a very well-known auction site on the internet, trying to buy up the last of those brown shorts that the now Decathlon Azure Desert team got rid of at the end of last year, because he might need them for that week on the motorbike. We'll see you there, Matt. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
So we've moved on from May, the Giro is done and dusted, and the pink t-shirts are in the wardrobe until next May again. However, we've still one thing to show you from that marvellous month of racing in pink in Italy. Our colleague Hannah Walker had unprecedented access to one of the most, perhaps, unknown, special and mysterious things that happens in bike racing, how it's filmed from the helicopter. Let's have a look.
Today I'm going to bring you the Giro d'Italia from a very unique perspective, something that's never been seen before. This is going to be my mode of transport, and I'm going to be flying in helicopter 2. I've got my headset, I've got my communication to the pilot in command Marco and our camera operator Tom. So we're ready to depart to follow the race on stage 11.
Here we are on the beautiful, beautiful coastline, and now we're going to track the peloton along the coast. We're actually travelling backwards right now. Trying to find one of the next points of interest, so they're trying to censor that. There's the church, and this is what they're wanting to focus on. Director of the OB truck at the finish line who is directing which cameras are going live. Now we're trying to find the Malia Rosa at Evidentia. We're trying to find him in the peloton. I hadn't quite realised how close we get to the riders, and the peloton is going so fast right now. Trying to find the special, the pink Giro train. The Giro train right alongside the peloton. So now we're going to position ourselves just after the finish line, and we can see the sprint coming in.
Milan coming through the centre, Medley and Milan, oh, the big man in purple takes it.
Jonathan Milan has just won the stage. Just below me now, I can see all of the media and my colleagues all running to get there.
So there we have it, we've landed at our meeting spot, the end destination, 2.5 hours of flying time following along the coast. An incredible stage, Jonathan Milan taking the victory, but following and getting all of the different shots, the angles, lining things up with all the different beauty shots, and of course getting the peloton and the breakaway, the convoy. Absolutely spectacular, incredible, and to see the behind the scenes of how we receive our television pictures and what goes in to bringing us the most beautiful, beautiful images is absolutely breathtaking.
Well, what's next for Hannah? Treasure hunt? Challenge Hannah? We'll have to wait and find out. I'm sure you'll be seeing and hearing from across our coverage in the next few weeks and months. Well, we're off to the Dauphiné. We'll be watching that from afar this week and talking you through it. You can see every single stage live, on demand, and remember to check out the highlights both on the channel and on the Eurosport Cycling YouTube channel as well. That's on Eurosport and Discovery Plus all week. The build-up to the Tour de France continues with the ZLM Tour as well. That's for the sprinters, the Netherlands' biggest stage race over several days. And massive news, it's the return of the Women's Tour in UK. That's a race that's been missing from the calendar from the last few years. It's back, 4 stages. You can watch that on Eurosport and Discovery Plus. All the top names will, of course, be there. And we will be back next week in the Gruppetto for more. We'll have a bit more of an idea of what's going on with Roglic and everybody else. Evenepoel, how's he got on? Rodriguez, Ayuso, loads of big names along with the American Eagles Kuss and Jorgensen in the Dauphiné. Gegenhardt and Ciccone there too, and that's just the GC riders. Plenty to be looking out for as you head towards the Tour. Join us next week on the Gruppetto. Until then, goodbye.